Hey, welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Last week, Nate and I recorded an episode on how both he and I are using AI in our respective businesses. And we got through the beginning and quote unquote intermediate level of AI usage. And we got to a certain point in the episode and I was like, you know what? Let's just record a second one and let's get into some of the more advanced tactics, some of the more advanced things that I've been doing with AI over the last year. I've been kind of quiet about it, despite the fact being very loud about it in 2023. And so I felt it was time that we did a little update and that I give a lot of ideas of how one could use it to save time and money and make yourself and your team more efficient. So if all of that sounds really, really good to you, definitely go back and listen to the previous episode on that. And that'll be a good warm up to what we're going to get into today, because today I'm going to start talking about some of the much more advanced things that I've been doing with it. And Nate, I'm sure you've got things that you're going to chime in with as well, some of the things that you all have been doing at BMF, or you might even have questions about some of the things that I'm doing using GPT and some other AI tools as well. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'm going to be sure to give a clear list of all the different AI tools that we're currently using to help run a more efficient Brooklyn Music Factory. But I'm sure I'm going to have questions for you, Daniel. So I say we dive right in.
All right, sounds good. Let's get into it. I'm just going to jump right back into the list that I was working off of last time. And again, these are some of the more advanced techniques, but maybe let's start out with something that's a little bit easier and probably something that folks here are probably doing themselves already, but if not, you probably should be. And some of the things that we're going to talk about today, I actually got from my operations manager, Bethany. There's actually several of these are things that she was doing. So this is not something that I told her to do with AI. This is something that she, in trying to save time, energy, effort, brain power, creativity in her job, has been using AI for. So first one, she's writing a lot of social media captions just using AI. So if we have a clip or something that we're releasing, she will run the transcript of the clip or the reel or the long form video into the AI, into ChatGPT. We have a pretty advanced prompt that we're using that gives it direction on writing style, what we should focus on, even how the text should be structured. We've given it a specific format in which it should be structured. And it's coming back with really, really good stuff that barely needs to be edited. Now, on its surface, this is probably not groundbreaking information. Here's why I brought it up, though. It's because of the prompt that I'm mentioning this. So over the years, I've taken training on how to write persuasively. I've taken trainings on how to write good social media captions. I've taken training on how to write good sales letters. In the prompt, in teaching the AI, I actually ran the AI through those trainings. That's why I'm actually including this, because anyone has probably thought, oh yeah, let me go get it to write a social media caption for me. It's actually training the AI on my writing style and running it through the trainings that I ran through. And what it's coming up with is so much more advanced and organic and human sounding than if we just said, hey, write a caption for my Instagram post. So that's why I'm kind of including this. It's really the specificity, it's really the training that we're running the AI through that is why I'm including this on the list.
So can we pause there for our listeners?
Sure.
So let's say we have listeners that haven't gone through 2 years of copywriting training or SEO training. Can you give just some very specific steps that they can take right now to get started with writing better prompts so that they can get some social media?
Sure.
Just let's give them something to and I'll test it out too myself because
sure.
I'm curious.
So I took, so if they haven't gone through training like that, well, I'll tell you what I did. I took the notes, the detailed notes that I wrote on the trainings that I went through, and I fed that to the AI and I said, I need you to learn how to write like this. Basically told it, read these notes. And then here's the text that you're going to be writing a caption for. This needs to be persuasive. It needs to be something. I described the audience that we were creating it for.
Okay, use your avatar. Yeah.
Yes. And And again, it's that specificity that makes the output so much more sophisticated and human sounding than, again, just writing a simple caption. So if you don't have a lot of detailed notes, what you could do is perhaps go to YouTube, use the YouTube transcript downloader that I talked about in the last episode,
Yep.
maybe get a couple videos on how to write persuasively. I'd probably recommend finding someone who's well known for writing persuasively, who's probably a really good teacher of this topic. John Morrow's a good one. Joanna Weeby's a good one. I'll just stop there. Gary Bensavinga, Gary Halbert, like any trainings that you can find on how to write a good sales letter or how to write persuasively or how to write good marketing. Download the transcript, feed it to the AI, say, hey, I want you to learn this, and then go from there. So if you don't personally have notes, this is probably a hack that you can get it to train the AI, because it's about training this intelligence.
Can I give a tip on the avatar? So one thing that we're using at Brooklyn Music Factory last year, one of our priorities was increasing the number of Google reviews, so that we were strengthening our Google My Business. We wanted much better local rankings, right? So over the course of last year, we surpassed all the music schools in New York City in terms of number of reviews to help with our SEO locally. So that's badass on its own that we actually put in the effort. I suggest everybody, depending on how important it is, to rank locally for their school. It's a great project. However, we can now go in. The next step we're doing is you can go in and take all of the 5-star reviews and comments, put them into ChatGPT and say, I want you to use this language, i.e. the language that your customers are actually using to describe the experience they're having in your school, to help us write the content. Because that's that avatar piece that Daniel's talking about. Now you're getting very specific on the people that are actually championing your school. Last thing I'll just say, if you go into your Google reviews right now, Google's already using AI for your benefit. They literally are organizing the reviews by keywords. They're saying, here's what people are saying the most. So for example, at Brooklyn Music Factory, if I pull up the reviews, community is like the number one word that people use. Well, our tagline is inspire musicians, build community. So of course we're super happy that actually community is showing up in the reviews. But back to you, Daniel, in terms of just what to feed it in to get better copy and to get better, I think you were saying social media headlines or something like that. That's one tip that I would suggest our listeners try, especially if they've got 20 or 30 reviews there that they can pull into their chat.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because this is the first, what I'm about ready to talk about is the first major project I did after the O1 model was released back in last August. And I'm going to go on an extended rant here about a massive project that I did with AI. And I trust the listener and those of you watching on YouTube to just begin to contemplate how you could use this for your music school. There are so many small techniques I'm going to talk about in here where if you're using your creativity, you're like, oh, I could totally do that. So I'm actually going to describe how we used AI to launch the Founders Forum last fall. So for those of you who've listened to the podcast for a while, the Founders Forum, you heard us talk about it quite a bit. Basically, we got a collection of owners of mid-size and large schools, and we're working together for them to have their best year ever in 2025. And we've been, at this point, as of the release of this episode, we've been working with them for several months. We've met up in person in Brooklyn. We might even do an episode in the future. So anyway, back in the fall when we were gearing up for the launch of this, Nate and I had, and this is no exaggeration, years of meetings about the content that we were going to be teaching in this year-long experience with all these school owners. Tons of meetings where we'd had transcripts made that I just made them with no intention at the time of how I was going to use them. But I was really glad that I had them. I had years and years of survey data from school owners in our various courses or launches that we'd done. I had all the content that we had done in the beta launch of this program back in 2022. I had all of the feedback forms that we'd gotten from the people in that beta several years ago. I had all this data. And so I went to ChatGPT and I said, hey, chat, I call it chat, and it responds to that. You can name it and it'll start responding to that name. I actually even asked if it had a preference of what I called it, and it gave me a number of. It actually talked back to me and said, like, you could call me this or this or this or this. I was like, cool. So I just call it chat. And I capitalize it. Anyway, I went to ChatGPT and I said, okay, I have all this data. If I feed all of this data to you, will you be able to remember it? And chat responded to me and gave me some qualifications and said it would try its best and that sort of thing. And then I even went into the technical and asked, how much can ChatGPT actually remember? And how does its function actually work? And again, this is after the O1 model had been released. Its ability to recall has greatly expanded. It said it could remember quite a bit. So I just started dumping all of this data in there. And then I started asking it questions. Like, based on all of this data, what were the most important things? The survey feedback. The feedback forms, the surveys. What were the most important things that people said they got out of the beta? And it gave me this long output, and it was very insightful. Then I said, based on all the meetings that Nate and I had, because I dumped in all the transcripts as well, what is it that Nate is most excited to teach about, and what is Daniel most excited to teach about? Could you match those up? It started doing all this analysis. It started giving me all this output. Then I started asking it, like, what would be the most important themes that we could emphasize in our marketing based on the perceived problems that music school owners have? And again, it gave me insights. And a lot of them were like, okay, that's intuitive. But then there were things there that I'd never considered. And those blind spots that I had were really where the cash value was. Then I started having it analyze all this information and doing cross-analysis and regression analysis and all this sort of thing. And then where it got interesting, or more interesting in my opinion, was based on the training that I'd given it about copy in other threads. I asked, hey, I trained you on how to write copy in this other thread. Can you use that? And based on all of this information that I've given you, write a sales letter for me. And it said, yes, I could do that. I could write a sales letter for you. And then I gave it several sales letters that I have saved from other people in the past. And I said, I don't want you to copy the content here, because it was about products that were completely unrelated to Founders Forum. It was like, it's not about the content. I want you to analyze the style. I want you to analyze the format and the form. Those are two different things. I want you to look at the way that it structured the information. And then I want you to look back at the features that we've said that we're going to put in this based on all these transcripts, what the clients want, what they're most insecure about. I want you to look at all of that, and I want you to output a sales letter that feels a lot like this one. And I actually fed it the entire sales letter. And its first draft was so good, it actually blew me away. Now, I had given it tons of information, and I'm not even I'm maybe only giving like 3% of all the things that I put into it right now. Like I gave it a very, very long prompt, and I had been chatting with it through this entire thread. This thread is very, very long, by the way. It's probably one of the longest threads I've ever had. And I was like, okay, I don't like this. I don't like this. I don't like this. I need you to add more on this. And you completely ignored the fact that I asked you for this. It was like, oh, yeah, sorry. It apologizes to me. And then it came back with another draft, and it was so good, I just took it out, and then I started editing it. And it was probably about 93% of the way done. And I mean, I had it come up with ideas for what the marketing emails could be like. When we actually started taking applications for the forum, now I had a whole new data set to go on. And actually, the content that we have ended up teaching over the last couple months has been greatly influenced by the fact that I could get it to do this analysis. And again, it's not so much that, oh, Daniel couldn't have done this on his own. It's the time savings. It's that I did in a matter of minutes what would sometimes in the past have taken me hours to go through and kind of come to an analysis and an evaluation on my own. It just could summarize it for me so fast. And then if I wanted to go in and read the specific comments, which of course I did, again, it just saved me brain power. It saved me creativity. It did all this analysis for me. It summarized the analysis for me. And then I could ask it questions and get very, very specific data points about, okay, now why are they asking for this particular topic? I never thought of teaching on this topic. Why are they wanting it so badly? Like this sort of thing, where I could just have a conversation with it. So,
can I give an example?
Yeah,
Daniel.
Well, do you have any questions about? Do you have any questions about anything I'm asking there? Or maybe you don't. I don't know.
Well, no, I want to summarize something because I was involved. Obviously, I was involved in it, and you kept sharing, and it was like an ever growing. Basically, what we would take is we would take the output from the Chat GPT, we'd dump it into our G drive. It would be in a G doc, and it would just be growing, and I would be reviewing. And sometimes you'd get some sort of insight that you'd just be so excited about that you just cut and paste a mega Slack to me, and you'd be like, Nate, you got to check this out. And of course, it's all about music school owners and all of their pain points and all of the opportunities around serving them. But what I hear you saying, if I'm correct here, is that you have dozens of conversations, which are data points. We had dozens of applications, which was another data point for music school owners. Mm-hmm. You and I had dozens of conversations, right? Then we took a whole bunch of discovery calls with potential members of the forum, and we took all of those transcripts and we dumped them in, right? Yeah. We use Otter for that. We talked about that last episode. But what I hear you saying in summary is it allows us to take way more data than we would normally be comfortable processing.
Hundreds and hundreds of thousands of words. Yes.
Yeah. And it efficiently summarizes. And I think, and maybe you want to speak more on this, because this has been my main takeaway as we've been exploring AI more here at the factory, which is that where we grow as users is in, first of all, understanding the scope and opportunity, which you just described, one great example. But then you've spoken to this a bunch so far in this app, but I wonder if you have any more to add, which is actually we get better at communicating with it. We get more, we don't let it spit something out and us just take it as gospel. Instead, right. We get much better with the prompts.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to add in terms of specificity with prompts or creativity around them?
I will say this, two things. First off, I don't want this point to be missed, because you just heard me nerd out for maybe, 5-10 minutes on exactly what I did here. But understand that the deepest motivation I had to do this was not because I enjoy this cool, fancy tool. It's so that I could serve these clients as well as I possibly could.
Yes.
And by, Nate, you pointed out, and I didn't even mention this, but you pointed out, we took the specific conversations we had with all these clients that came into the forum, and we also put them in there so that we could tailor make some of the curriculum for this year to the specific challenges that these people had. We had a general curriculum, but what we've been able to do is add, let's add this on. Like, we were already going to teach this topic, but let's specifically add this point into this topic, because it looks like 8 of these people need it. Eight of the people that enrolled mentioned this specific thing, and we wouldn't have thought necessarily to put that in there. And it just allows us to be so much more responsive and service oriented to the clients, and that's really the point of all this, as well as saving time in doing it. So that's the first thing. The second thing I would say is that any place in your school or your business that you can take a lot of text, or you can take a lot of conversations that have been had and put it into a thread like this and begin asking it questions, since this is possible, this now raises the ceiling on the potential that this tool has for you. So in other words, your creativity will follow the fact that you know that this is possible now. And Nate, you were telling me the other day about something that you're going to do with Ben. And I think this is the perfect place for you to drop this in, because maybe, someone isn't going to be doing a mastermind and need a sales letter for it in a music school, but what you're going to do with Ben, what you said, is completely applicable. And I think you should talk about it now.
Okay, I'm going to share that. I'm going to share one other micro example of how I've done it for myself as a founder. So Ben is our private lesson director at Brooklyn Music Factory. Daniel and I have talked about Ben. Ben's been on the pod.
On this podcast, 100 episodes ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll come back as a guest again at some point. But he's been here since opening day. He's been our private lesson director, I'd say, for 10 years. He's had literally hundreds of one-on-one check-ins. He's led, I'm going to say, probably 100 new hire check-ins. And he is really quite good with recording everything he does, right? So he's either, taken notes. We just have a template in a GDoc where he takes notes from every check-in. Now he records everything. He records it all in otter.ai, so it's there. And what we're doing right now is we're going to work with someone who's going to start compiling basically all of these department meetings and all of these check-ins, and essentially become a database, just like a wisdom base for people to ask questions of Ben without Ben needing to be there to answer them. So essentially it becomes like an agent, like a bot of Ben, but it's like you were saying, Daniel, it's based on like a decade of experience. And in Ben's case, he's been doing this for 25 years. He's just like a master educator. So when we bring in a new hire, and they have any type of question, it could be a question about what curriculum to use for this specific level student. It could be something as mundane as an IT question, right? Wait, well, how do I, submit my time off request again? Where's that form? Like, it could be basic training stuff that, honestly, Daniel, is annoying as all hell to Ben. Ben's like, it's all in the manual. But of course, we all know that we're all busy. People don't go and look. Some people are better at finding their own answers than others. So why not use AI in this case to create a knowledge base that is quick and efficient and simple? But most importantly, this isn't just an FAQ base, right? Daniel, back to your point when you were talking about copywriting, et cetera. Most importantly, it's tapping into the voice and knowledge of a specific person, because that specific person is Ben. And Ben is very specifically a key reason why our culture and success at Brooklyn Music Factory is what it is, right? So this isn't just a generic FAQ training manual. This is actually a sort of an opportunity and knowledge base for all of our teachers and staff, well, mostly our teachers, to dig into, but with a whole different level of depth and richness that's in the voice of Brooklyn Music Factory.
Let me ask a question. Is this going so it sounds like this is going to include not only his wisdom on admin, it sounds like it's also going to include like wisdom on procedures around Brooklyn Music Factory and maybe even teaching tips.
Yes.
And things of that nature.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay.
So it's gonna include delivery on promise. It's also going to include operations. And now that I'm saying all of this, dude, we need to do the exact same thing with Jessica, our director of families and communication. Yeah. So everything around payroll, time off, just managing your life in the physical facility or the digital facility that is Brooklyn Music Factory. How badass would it be if people could just ask in a Slack channel, Jessica, and the Jessica bot answered, but in a voice that felt authentic with real usable solutions. So this, I'm just, we should do a follow-up. Let's make a note to do a follow-up episode in 6 months and see how effective all this is. But,
right.
We're building it over the next couple months.
Right. That's cool. Along the same lines, at Piano Express, grouplessons.com, the world's best group lesson system. for piano. We have a pretty intense team. Everyone on this team is just like an A+++ player. We've got our head of engineering used to work for Google, has been in multiple startups. The person who's designed the curriculum is just one of the most creative people I've ever met. Our operations manager, Bethany, is just on top of everything. Nothing slips through the cracks with her. She's got SOPs. She probably has a standard operating procedure on how to breathe the correct way for maximum oxygen intake. Like, that's just how thorough she is. Okay. And so it's a crime to get all these people into a room and not in some way squeeze every drop of effectiveness out of a meeting where we're disrupting the work of all of these people. So we had annual planning for Piano Express, grouplessons.com, and we're thinking about what we want to do in 2025. This was back in December. So obviously we all met on Zoom because we're all, Bethany and I are here in Indiana. Our engineering guy is in Tennessee. Greg's in Virginia. Our customer success coach is also in Virginia. So we're all meeting on Zoom. We have Otter in there. And what we did was we recorded our annual planning sessions, the multiple times we got together to talk about, what we want to do in 2025, to reflect on 2024, what worked, what didn't, what our threats and opportunities are, like all this sort of thing. And then we also did pre-work. We had stats, marketing stats from the year. We had financial stats from the year. Guess what I did? I dumped our detailed P&L in there. It can analyze financials for you.
Wait, this is in ChatGPT?
Yes. Okay, I dumped our marketing stats, and I dumped all the subjective things that we talked about. I dumped the transcripts from all the annual planning sessions. I dumped transcripts from just conversations that Greg and I had. And then I dumped the actual document that we created from there, all in there. And I was like, I want you to analyze all this and look for blind spots. I want you to look for things that we might be missing that might never got talked about. And some of the things that it told me, I was like, whoa. I asked it to analyze our financials and look for things that we could do better on, where maybe we could save money. I asked for it to give me a percentage breakdown of what we spent our money on last year and make sure that it falls within an acceptable range for that category. I asked it to, just all the things I asked it to do. I probably could teach a class on this, to be honest. And again, it isn't as if, there are some things that maybe if I had just dedicated 2 to 3 months on like just poring over all of this, that I could have come up with. But again, it just got me to a level of understanding of all the issues and all the opportunities and how we might take these strengths and match it up with these problems that we were experiencing. Like it did all this work for me in the blink of an eye. And it just came up with some stuff that a really sophisticated action plan. Now, of course, there's some things that I'm going to suggest that we act on that it didn't, but yeah, it just, the thoroughness of it was insane to me.
That is an awesome project. We just spent a whole month putting together the annual planning workbook, which is with our founders forum. And really it was all about helping them and helping us as a community understand all the different data points that matter. And imagine taking that whole workbook and then, this time next year with the forum, we do a whole series of prompts within ChatGPT as a community to start seeing. It could be super powerful, right?
What I want to do is take the training that you gave in the Founders Forum and put it in the AI and train it to think the way you do, and then have it go back through all this annual planning stuff and see even what it comes up after that.
This episode is sponsored by BigMusicGames.com. As our listeners know, Brooklyn Music Factory is all about a fun, fluency-first approach to music lessons. And at the foundation of our teaching methods are rhythm, melody, harmony, and songwriting games that challenge students as young as 4 years old to train their ears and flex that musical mind. Because when you set an intention of gamifying every single lesson, you're going to find improved attendance, increased play at home, and higher student retention. So we've set up a website just for our listeners so you can start playing today. Go to bigmusicgames.com/7FMS and create your free account. Again, that's bigmusicgames.com/7FMS. And if you join today, I'm going to send you a personal invite to join our weekly teacher training call with me and Greggy Bizzle, our chief game designer. Go ahead and put play back into practice with Big Music Games. I think for the listeners, this is the type of episode that really just gets the juices flowing in terms of where you want to grow as an owner of your school and program, and so some of it is very actionable, but a lot of it is more like I want to dig deeper into understanding what you're talking about, Daniel. Right? Let me just give a concrete example. We've talked a lot about making sure we're getting consistent feedback from our team as founders. Right. So we talk about surveying the faculty. We talk about surveying our staff. We talk about, at Brooklyn Music Factory, just probably at least every 2 months, I'm surveying the team on something, almost every month, because what I'm trying to do is get a much broader perspective on the community that is Brooklyn Music Factory than I'm going to get in one-on-one conversations or only with the leadership team. Right. And so one of the things we did this time last year was survey the team on how we were doing as a leadership team. And we had a whole series of questions in a Google form. And basically what you're trying to do is figure out how your faculty and staff value you and perceive you and areas where you might need to grow, right, as a leader. Right. You were sort of mentioning this earlier. You were like, with your team, you were saying, Daniel, likely it's a growth opportunity for you. It's not a reflection on the team if things aren't going well, right? Or something goes off the rails on a meeting, et cetera. But basically what I then did, because I had a whole pile of answers from we had like 18 to 20 answers. And I took all of the feedback targeted at me and dumped it into ChatGPT. And basically the prompt was just like you were describing, please summarize, what was my initial prompt? Please provide the please let me know precisely areas where I can improve and areas where I'm doing well and serving the community. And then I said, for me, it's always really important to get it in bulleted forms because I can get overwhelmed by a lot of text. So it's just another example of how you can take a whole pile of information. It can take a Google sheet and summarize for you. It doesn't need to all be, it can be in whatever form you want. I'm going to say one other thing for those that are listening that struggle with feedback. If you're someone who's like, you only see the pain points and then you just have a total imposter syndrome, deflated, depressed state of mind because people are writing and they're like, Nate, you seem distracted, or Nate, and that's all you see in the survey. Again, using a tool to summarize for you and then prompting it to say, what are we doing well? Where are areas we need to improve? And summarizing it all for us to look at could really help you, because then you're not just zeroing in on that one red, you only see red cars once you buy a red car. You only see negative feedback once you ask for feedback. So sometimes these AI tools can be really valuable that way. They just help summarize for us. So I wanted to share that example.
Yes. As we head to the end of the episode here, I'm just going to list off rapid fire some other things that we're doing that are a little more advanced, maybe a little, it just came from need. Like, oh, we need to do this. And this goes to the integration comments I made, where it's just like, well, I bet the AI can do this. So, for example, I got this one from Bethany, my ops manager. She was having trouble. I'd asked her to do something specific on a blog post that we published on the Grow blog. And there needed to be a featured download box, and it was messing up. And she literally went to chat and she said, hey, could you write the code for me to make this work? And she put in what she'd been doing, and it came back and was like, oh yeah, just copy and paste this into the code editor, and it worked perfectly, like right away. Another one.
This used to be like a whole week on Fiverr, Daniel.
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is to your point in our last episode. Um, damn, what a relief to not spend like $400 on Upwork and try to find the right hire just to do
Well,
this friggin' opt-in form.
let me go over another one. Like literally, we have a very sophisticated billing system for grouplessons.com. It's I'm not even going to get into describing it. And we have to merge the app that we built with a billing solution. And um, I literally go, we have a team account and I'll go in and I will see a thread. I was like, oh, I didn't make that thread. And sometimes I just look at what Bethany's up to, not like because I don't trust her, just like I'm actually fascinated how good she is with AI. Um, and she'll like be getting code to put into her app. She's not even a coder, or like
Yeah.
to like make these things work, like the API between our billing
Yeah.
software or whatever. Like
Yeah.
literally, she just did another one this week. Okay, so there's that. Also, she another one she wrote. Um, she just wrote, "I use chat as my she calls it chat too. I use chat as my Google for condensed how to of things I wouldn't normally understand. For instance, how to set up a custom field in Chargebee and test it. So she's literally writing SOPs that go in our company manual on how to do like really technical things inside of our software. And I'll go in and look at the prompt she's writing to get this done. And they're pretty crazy sometimes. Um, I'll give a personal one. I if you're a more avid listener of the pod, you know that like you know what Nate and I's hobbies are. Nate goes overseas to like climb stairs in Switzerland. I like weightlifting, like all this sort of thing. I dumped a year's worth of training data in there and asked it to analyze it based on what, and I named several strength coaches. You are, and I named some strength coaches. You are the ultimate in wisdom in this area. And based on all the things that they've written in books that are publicly available, I want you to analyze my last year of training, and I want you to tell me blind spots I have, what I might need to do more of, and just general observations that you'll have about this. And what it came back with, again, was more than just like edutainment. It was like, oh, interesting. Okay. And I
Mm.
actually made some changes to my training based on that. Okay. That's another one.
Wait, hold
Um,
on. Let me just clarify. You said you took trusted experts,
right.
like three names, and you
Right.
said used all of the materials that you can scrub from the web
Yep.
based on these three.
Yep.
And then here's what my current training is, and
Yep.
my results were. Can you tell me where the blind spots are?
Okay. So, and let me just even be more clear. So I write out how many reps I do, what the weights were, what the exercise was,
Yes.
the amount of time that I rested between um, reps and sets, um, and so like I gave it very specific data. So it's fortunate that I wrote all this stuff down, and I've got years worth of it. Um, and I told it even to do like a trend analysis over time, and again with all that data, then I could ask it questions. Yeah, so that's what I did with that.
Cool. Very
Um,
cool.
I'll have it make summaries of coaching calls with my coach. Um, I go in there all the time and ask it very specific things about softwares. So like I was Zoom all of a sudden started acting up on me like a month or two ago, and it was doing something really really weird, and I couldn't figure out how to get it. And so I was going through the help file,
Mm.
and then after about 5 minutes of just getting unbelievably frustrated with the help file, I was like, wait a minute, why am I doing this? I went to ChatGPT and I was like, this is what's happening on Zoom. I looked through the help file. It was not very helpful at all. Can you tell me how to fix this problem? And I hit enter, and it sits there thinking for like 15 seconds, and then it comes up with a step by step of like where I need to go into the settings to change this particular thing. And it was absolutely right.
Mm.
So, and what it looked like it did was it looked like it scrubbed the help file. And so it did in seconds what took me a while to like try to go through and find the right area and type the question over and over again and like go through articles and read it myself. And it literally gave me a step by step guide. Other times it's done this, and I can tell that it's based on an old version of a guide. So, like, it'll say, go to this, and then you'll see this option in the menu, click that option. And I'll say, hey, that option isn't there anymore. Are you operating off of old information? Could you look again and try to get it right this time? And then it'll think, and then it'll come back, and then the directions will be correct.
Yes. Actually, that last detailed point I think is really important to mention. There are multiple times where I'll be like, hey, I think you need to take a second look at this.
Mm-hmm.
Is this really the complete list of all the actions that we talked about? And they'll say, no, sorry, I missed 3 or 4. Daniel, it totally reminds me, or it makes me think as a music school owner, that let's say we've read like Michael Gerber's E-Myth, and we've read, this is the book we're reading in Founders Forum, Clayton Mask's Conquer the Chaos. We have 1 or 2 or 3 trusted business minds that were like, I haven't read a ton, but I really believe that this is a methodology and a brain that I trust. It strikes me that you could take one of your most recent pain points at your school and just say, I'd like you to tell me how, for example, how would Clayton Mask answer this or solve this issue? I've got 3 teachers that all left with little to no notice in the last 2 months. Can you please tell me, some areas that I might improve as a business to avoid this happening in the future? But I'd like you to use these thinkers to help come up with your solution. Just a sort of a very cool back to your weight training. It's a very cool use of it. If you're like me, it's like I only have like a dozen of these books that I've read and I reread and I keep rereading. And then I'll add 1 or 2 maybe every year. Maybe. So why not use those brains in this context, like you just suggested, but in a personal way?
This episode is sponsored by GroupLessons.com. If you're looking for a group piano method that is easy to implement in your studio or school, look no farther than Piano Express from GroupLessons.com. Because unlike most group piano methods, Piano Express allows students to make individual progress within the context of a larger group. And because of the at-home practice tools and gamified curriculum, students using the Piano Express method make faster progress than the average method book student. And that helps students feel excited, accomplished, and motivated to learn new music. Also, the system is really adaptable. We've got teachers using the system in their home studios, and we have many large commercial studios running our 3-room model that allows you to see up to 24 students per hour with just 2 teachers. So if you'd like to learn more about Piano Express, navigate to grouplessons.com and sign up for a free demo. You'll get to look at the method, our app and teacher guides, and we'll even give you a sneak peek of our implementation plan that has helped hundreds of studios start their group program in just a few weeks. So this will be I think this is my last thing, because I've got other stuff on my list that I feel like we're out of time. And honestly,
totally, we got more apps.
Yeah. and honestly, and I'll just kind of put this out there. This is the kind of stuff that I've started, some of the more advanced stuff. And actually, I've referred to my prompts. I'm actually giving my prompts away to a lot of my clients. And this is something I think in 2025, we're going to be doing more in the accelerator. I'm going to have a whole section on this. But I'll just say this. Last tip, or I guess last idea I'm going to put out there.
Nice.
It has gotten to the point now where I want to go beyond just asking it like, hey, look across the web and look at everything that Jeff Nippard wrote on or has said publicly about weightlifting. And then based on that, that's kind of a black box. I don't know how well it's doing a good job of doing that. So I've gone a step beyond that now. This is how deeply I've gotten into it. I hired someone off of Upwork. So there is a business person who has a very detailed website. Frankly, I don't know why they're just giving all this information away for free. And I'm going to be specific. Like, this is a little bit more advanced and maybe a little bit more of a strategic advantage. So I'm going to leave it a little vague here. Just a business genius, where they've just written a lot on their site, and it's highly detailed information. And I had someone who knew how to code in Python, create a Python script. And I mean, I don't know how to do that. I knew they knew how to do it. And they literally scraped the entire website and gave it to me all in one Google Doc, and we made a custom GPT out of it. And I can go and ask it questions now. I'm also considering there's another business dude or a couple business dudes who they have a lot of videos on YouTube I'm going to have someone download all those videos, convert them into transcripts using like a scraping script, which will do it super fast. And create a custom GPT around that as well, because they have just a lot of great information on marketing. And like, I mean, there's a lot of people where their videos are just genius. Like, and I'm like, and I've watched the videos so many times. I've got courses that I bought over a decade ago that greatly influenced my career, where I would just love to transfer that into a custom GPT and just ask it. And I just have this business genius at my beck and call at any given time. Like, hey, this is the problem I'm having in my business right now, based on all the knowledge of like Naval Ravikant, Eben Pagan, Alex Hormozi, Gary Vaynerchuk, Grant Card, Clay. Right. Give me an analysis of the problem and tell me what to do to solve it. So this is what I'm working on right now.
Yeah, maybe this will be my final comment. One of the things that we hear more often than not from our clients, both in the forum and then I hear from coaching clients, is that they lack a partner. Nate, I don't have someone who I can bounce ideas off of. And I think while that speaks to a number of issues in the way they're imagining partners and possibilities with thought partners, etc., it does what you're describing right now gives us a step in the right direction, right? Because if you're feeling like you don't have someone to ask and everything is a one-way street, i.e. you're only watching Alex Hormozi spit content at you, but you can't actually ask them a question. Right? You're saying, hey, I'm creating, here's one way you can do it. It does take some time and effort, but you can create a thought partner that you can start to ask questions to. Because, it's not a new idea that being the founder of your music school can feel extremely lonely. And by no means am I suggesting that your chat GPT is going to become your next best friend. But what I am suggesting, based on what you're saying, I mean, that movie's already been made. But what I am suggesting is that our job is to ensure that we're not limited only by our own scope of perspective.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what I hear in your next creative project here.
And what I will say, I keep saying, and my last thought is, I have another last thought. Okay. I don't believe that this will replace the coach that I have or the coaches that I've had in the past. Here's what it'll do. It helps me come to the coach with better questions. It accelerates my thinking. It's an efficiency thing. That's how I view it. So when I go back and think about how I used my coach Dave nearly a decade ago when I first met him, and I just had all of these anxious questions for him, and then he helped me deal with my anxiety. And we've actually made episodes about that in the recent past. Both me and you, and Alyssa and I did one. And I'm not sure if we released it yet or not. No, we did. We released it back in December. I'll put that in the show notes. Bethany put that in the show notes on the work. So, but I would come to them with these anxious questions. And as I think back on them, was it important that I asked them? Yes, it was. It absolutely was. But guess what? You can go to Chat GPT right now into the custom GPT section, and people have made several bots that will allow you to go through Byron Katie's method of the work, and it will prompt you to do it. Right. And it's informed by all of her writings and a lot of transcripts of her and her advice. And so it's like, here's my point. You can accelerate getting to results so that you're bringing the most difficult and the most challenging questions that are tough to answer. And maybe you can burn through some of the easy stuff yourself. Yes. But the whole point is to accelerate and to grow. And here's the deal. I look at where I'm at in business right now and compare it to where I was 5 years ago and 10 years ago, and I couldn't have imagined what I'm experiencing right now. Am I done? Of course not.
No, we're just.
I'm struggling with things still. I still have things to do. And if, I still have work to do on multiple fronts. The point is that it's the speed with which you get to it. And any tool I can use or program or talk to that will get me to that result, I'm all for it.